Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We are here at our final session from our four-part series on post-consumer recycled material. The topic for today's webinar is the rising tide of apparel and textile waste. What brands are doing and is it enough? I'm really happy to have partnered with RRS for this webinar series, and in just a minute I'll pass it over to Marisa Adler. But before we do that, I want to just get through a few housekeeping things. On your right side panel, you'll see that there's a place for you to either enter a chat question, you can type a question directly into the question box, and that will be the best way to ask questions during the session. We'll be holding a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And so all the questions will be posed then. We'll try to keep enough time so that we're able to get through as many as possible. We also are recording today's webinar, and so you'll be able to access it afterwards along with a PDF of the slide deck. So don't worry about scrambling to take notes or trying to remember things to pass on to your colleagues. We'll be able to distribute this out after the session. So you can see this is the fourth session in the series. And if you're curious about the other two sessions, maybe you missed out, you can go on to textileexchange.org and look at our webinar archives, and you'll just enter a little bit of your contact information and be able to download the archives of those past webinars as well. One other thing I want to mention, we are nearing very close to our upcoming Textile Exchange Sustainability Conference, which is happening in Washington, D.C., October the 9th through the 13th. Our theme is United by Action, Catalyzing the Sustainable Development Goals in Textiles. It's a really exciting conference. It's a really great way to see Textile Exchange in person and really understand the scope of the work that we're doing and to network and meet other professionals from the industry. We'll also be following up on this post-consumer topic with a particular focused breakout session during the conference. You can go online to our website. There's a link down there, and it's actually pretty easy to navigate just from the home page of textileexchange.org. And with that, I will pass it over to Marisa. Thanks so much, Marisa.
Thank you, Ashley, and thanks again to the Textile Exchange for hosting this webinar series. Like Ashley said, this is the last in a four-part webinar series exploring the link between textile waste and circularity in the United States. Today, we are going to hear from Jennifer Gilbert of EILEEN and Cynthia Power of EILEEN Fisher on what brands are doing to address textile waste in the United States. Again, this webinar series is being hosted by the Textile Exchange and organized by Resource Recycling Systems. RRS is a recycling and sustainability consulting firm working across market sectors. We've worked helping local governments, big and small, manage their waste streams for over 30 years. And with that, I would like to introduce Jennifer Gilbert, our first speaker. Jennifer Gilbert currently serves as the Chief Marketing Officer of EILEEN, a leading global solutions provider for collection, reuse, and recycling of apparel, footwear, and other textiles. She is the driving force for EICO's North America division to keep textiles out of landfills and in a continuous closed-loop product cycle through its innovative take-back programs. She works with some of the largest brands, such as H&M, Levi's, and Columbia Sportswear, to take on end-of-use product responsibility, and she has empowered the City of San Francisco, Westfield shopping centers, and consumers to help create a sustainable fashion future. Gilbert speaks nationally about this important message from stages such as the 2015 United Nations NGO Conference to Glasgow Caledonian University's Fair Fashion Center and Sustainable Brands Conferences. She serves on the Cradle to Cradle Product Innovation Institute's Material Reuse Advisory Panel and the Global Fashion Exchange Advisory Board. For over 25 years, Gilbert has been a passionate champion for positive change through business, helping Fortune 500 companies to boutique brands create award-winning solutions that inspire people and organizations to make a difference. I am just going to pass the mouse control over to Jennifer, and Jennifer, take it away as soon as you're ready.
Great. Thanks, Marisa, so much. Thanks, Textile Exchange, for having me here today on the webinar. I'm going to make sure I've got moving this forward. Hold on. So I am clicking. So sorry, everybody, but it's not going forward, the slide. Can you hear me, Marisa?
Yep, try it now. Sorry about that.
Okay. Clicking. Oh, up. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Okay, beautiful. Again, thanks so much for having me here today. I'm excited about being on this last webinar of the sessions that have been happening on textile waste, and extremely important subject, and one that's very dear to my heart, and as it is to ICO's. I am going, before I get into ICO and what we're about, I think it's best to maybe just step back and look at some of the stats around textile waste. I know many of you have been on in the past webinars, but as we're drilling down into what fashion brands are doing and how ICO is helping, I thought we'd step back and look at the textile waste challenge and talk about fashion brands' responses to that challenge as of today. Then talk about ICO, and then innovation and collaborations that are happening to really move the industry forward to become more sustainable. So, the next slide. In terms of textile facts, I mean, many of you may have seen these, maybe not. What's been very interesting is over the past couple of years, there has been a lot more reports, studies, etc., on this subject. So it's a good thing for all of us because we get more and more educated in the industry as well as the consumer. I mean, the top left, in terms of the global clothing consumption right now, it's this Pulse report that just came out through the Global Fashion Agenda is saying that we will jump by 63% from 62 million tons today to 102 million until 2030, which this would equal more than 500 billion t-shirts. So the clothing consumption will continue to rise. At this point, there's about 80 billion pieces of clothing produced worldwide every year, and that clothing production has doubled between the years of 2000 and 2014. A concern is that top right corner, which is at 20% on a global level, is really the average of what's being collected for reuse and recycling, meaning 80% then is going into landfill or incineration. Here in the States, that is about 16% right now through the EPA reports, which is leaving 84% going to our landfill incineration, which is about 27 billion pounds. In the middle, the 3 out of 4 garments really are ending up in landfills or incineration. And the sad thing is, on the right side, as much as 95% of clothes and shoes thrown away could have been reused or recycled. They're a very valuable resource, especially when you look at one t-shirt could take up to 700 gallons of water to make. And I was like giving that example of it's 140 of those big Arrowhead jugs that you have in the office. So a lot of water as well as other environmental impacts. But if you look at the bottom right corner, if we move to a global collection rates to 60%, that would reduce waste by about 54 million tons each year, and the industry would save approximately $4.8 billion per year from just the cost of going to landfill. So there's huge opportunity here on a lot of levels, and when you really start looking at closing the loop in the circular economy for the industry, even looking at recycled cotton, the bottom right corner, is the fact that environmental impact of recycled cotton is 80% less than virgin cotton. So there's a lot of positives in moving into the direction of sustainable fibers to really help move the industry forward. So that paints some picture of textile facts. And the other part of this is, the industry, and many industries around it are really using the current linear economy model. And that is, as many of you know, taking resources, making goods, and then disposing of them and having really no plan for their end of life or end of use. And as we all know, this model is reaching its physical limits, especially with the world population expected to exceed 8.5 billion people. And as we just spoke, the global garment production to increase by 63% by 2030. So things definitely need to change, and a lot is being done to get us down the road. Click. I'm clicking, but nothing's moving. Thank you. I wanted to touch on that many fashion brands are responding to this textile challenge, and they're really looking at it and I've kind of mapped this out in the way that the waste hierarchy works. The waste hierarchy starts actually with making sure we're maintaining what we already own, and then going down to the repair, to the reduce, to the reuse, to the recycle, and then below that would be any disposal, whether that be through incineration or landfill. But this priority really helps to reduce the amount of waste generated. So in terms of maintaining, a lot of brands are taking it to the point of the care tags. As you all know, care tags are helping consumers learn more about what they can do to their clothing to make it last longer. A lot of education being done in terms of washing things at low temperature and line drying, and really helping the consumer just really take care of their goods. That's most important. Then you drop into the repair side, which again is trying to fix our stuff, so it does have its life. So as you all know, I mean, there's repairs that are happening in stores, whether that's Levi's or Nudie Jeans. Things are happening at repair centers. Sponsored fix-it events are happening around the world. As you all know, Patagonia has their great truck that I've been to help repair. And then there's great companies like the Renewal Workshop who are helping brands to refurbish their things like new. So repair is actually becoming a big subject in the industry, so that's not going to waste. And then the obvious is to reduce our consumption, so don't buy what we don't need, and that just harpens back to the infamous Patagonia ad about don't buy this jacket. But a lot of brands are definitely supporting to reduce and repair and maintain. But then it drops into reuse, and reuse, instead of just tossing it, to share it, to donate it, to sell it, to rent it, so that we can use these items for different purposes. There's companies that are sponsoring swaps. They're working with charities. They're reselling used product in their brick and mortar stores or online stores. So it's definitely helping the consumer look at these goods in a different way, and actually having some great economic models around it. And then dropping into recycling. And this is when it's finally time to throw something away and recycling, make sure that the materials are used to make things again and again. A key thing here is take-back programs that many brands are doing, and that is really where ICO steps in. When we look at the waste hierarchy, we work in the areas of the reuse and recycle. And forward to the next. Thanks, Marisa. And so who are we? I mean, who is ICO? ICO is short for I Collect. We are a global solutions provider and innovator for the collection. It's very important part of the mix, the reuse and the recycling of used apparel and footwear. Our mission is really to enable a circular economy, not a linear economy, in the fashion industry. And that is pre-loved clothing and shoes would circulate in closed product and material cycles and be used continuously in the manufacturing of new products. It's our mission, it's our commitment, and we're working with many brands to help achieve that and the industry. Marisa, maybe I'll just let you take it. Yeah. Many of you have probably seen, all different types of circular economy charts, but it comes down to the circle. And the whole circular economy is about keeping our resources in use for as long as possible and extracting the maximum value from them, and then recover and regenerate products and materials at the end of each life so that nothing goes to waste, and we'll be living in a world where everything is endlessly reused. And that is our goal for the textile and fashion industry. The next slide. In terms of the kind of partners we're working with, it's primarily fashion brands. We are at about 40 partners right now in a global logistic network. The key offering is the innovative store take-back program, and we're collecting in more than 60 countries around the world. And we were founded in 2009, and we're based headquarters in Germany, but I'm in the offices here in the US. We have offices in the UK, Japan, and we recently just opened up in China. And we are continuing to grow. Next slide. Our key is, this is our circular economy chart, and it's really our process as how we look at creating a closed loop for textiles. It starts at the top, which is the point of sale, and this is consumers coming into our brand partners to bring in their unwanted clothing and shoes and getting a reward for doing that. From there, the goods are sent to sorting facilities around the world to find its next best use. And from there, it could go into the reuse circle, meaning these wearable goods will continue in their cycle until they're no longer wearable. And then they drop out of the circle, which is turning into either open loop recycling or closed loop recycling, which is then bringing product back into the loop if it's through the textile industry or out of the loop into other industries. And I'll show you some next slides as to how that works its way through. So the next slide, please. Great. We really break this down into our core competencies of collection and sorting and then circularity. And next slide. And in terms of collection, our programs are really about helping brands take on product responsibility. Our goal is really to, everywhere products are sold, that they should be taken back at their end of life. Primarily this is happening on a store level. These are visuals of some of our partners from the take back collection bins, but in the center, some of our partners are now going online and allowing customers to actually send their goods back to them, and they'll be getting a discount for doing that as well, because as the e-commerce world continues to grow, it's important that consumers have a very easy, convenient, and rewarding experience in order for them to really change their way and habits, and to have us all increase recycling rates around the world to beyond the 20% worldwide and 16% here in the United States. The next, take the next slide. These are the type of communication tools that many of our partners are using, whether it's flyers, whether it's movies, whether it's exhibits such as the one in the middle, which is showing, actually that's in San Francisco, an exhibit that showed how much is being tossed every hour into their landfills. It's 4,700 pounds right there. So a lot of different ways our partners are communicating. Then the next question is, where does everything go? These are visuals of our recycling facility in Germany. It's one of the state-of-the-art facilities in the world. And what's very key here is sorting for circularity, to sort until you can't sort any longer. So professional sorting is really the basis to sustainably processing used clothing and shoes. And this is where it has to be hand sorted at this point in time. There is definitely technology that is happening around the world. One of the past webinars spoke in regards to that. But majority of everything right now is hand sorted, to take a look at its quality, to take a look at its fiber content. And through our facilities around the world that we partner with, they're sorting in over 350 categories, and it's either going into reuse or recycling. And our simple definition of reuse is if it's wearable, then it should have its life extended, especially if all the natural resources and material resources that are embedded in it. So that is resold to the secondhand market around the world. And then if it's not reusable, I mean, if it's not rewearable, then it falls into recycling. And that is then looked at to say, is it still usable in terms of wiping cloth or pieces and parts that designers might want? Or does it need to be shredded into a fiber if possible, and then turned into either insulation products or carpet padding or stuffing for upholstery? Or ultimately, to close the loop, is to spin that back into a fiber and then ultimately back into fabric and back into clothing. And that is where closing the loop in the circular economy needs to be. And you can, next slide. That then turns right into the circular supply chain, and it's critically important for material reutilization. And this is recycling of valuable resources by designing new circular supply chains. So open loop is really what I talked about in terms of insulation products, but the issue there is that doesn't have an extended life. And once that building is torn down, once that car is no longer in use, that does turn to waste. So the future really is on closed loop and creating those circular supply chains so that the feedstock of all of our used clothing and shoes will get turned right back into feedstock for the industry to create new product. As you can tell, those are my hands in the top left, and that process right now of recycling is mechanical recycling, and that is taking it and chopping it into pieces and then pulling it into fiber. The issue in the industry right now is blended fibers and polyester and the blends, but in terms of mechanical recycling, it is able to use 100% cotton, 100% wool, and denim has become kind of the first foray into the circular fashion. So the next slide is just an example of the denim to denim. Together with one of our retail partners, we've helped establish an individual process for cotton to be recycled and spun into the yarns, like I said. And this is to provide new denim fabrics. What has happened is really successfully releasing a recycled denim collection that has 20% recycled cotton from post-consumer waste. It's a very important delineation here of there's post-consumer and then there's post-industrial. Post-industrial is, as many of you know, what is on the cutting room floors do they access from manufacturing. Our key focus really at ICO is the difficult side of post-consumer. It's at 27 billion pounds here in the United States, and trying to make sure that that's closing the loop. Our partner is going to be coming out with another collection this fall and continuing down the line of trying to increase this 20%. The fibers are difficult to work with. They have to be blended with organic cotton, virgin cotton. So we will continue to push the envelope on not only recycled cotton, but recycled polyester and all the other blends. Right now, in 2016, 1,000 tons of recycled PCW cotton was produced for denim apparel products by us. And as I mentioned very beginning of the presentation about the environmental impact, that the climate and water impacts are reduced by 80 to 90% for the stages up to when the fiber is ready for spinning. So it really can help create a happier and healthier planet as we continue to strive to use recycled fibers and content in the industry. And next slide. The other part of our story too is working with our partners on solution for the returns and damages and excess goods of their brands. In the past, there's been a take, make, waste approach to that as well, but we're really helping partners now find an environmentally conscious and confidential way of handling these returns so that they stay in the loop as long as possible, and also provide some economic value for them as well. Next slide. Among our partners, I mentioned up front, we have about 40 different partners around the world, but here are just some of them that we're proud to be partners with on creating a circular economy for the industry. The interesting one here is we dubbed our first partner in terms of shopping centers. So Westfield, many of you may know, are here in the United States and then part of Europe, but they have taken the charge to work with brands that are at each one of their centers to push the message to customers of bringing their goods in and helping close the loop. So we just launched that this year. We're very excited about continuing that and increasing the collection rates. And in terms of our impact, over 154 million pounds of clothing and shoes have been collected to date. That's about 59 million pieces of clothing. And all in all, we are reducing waste, we're preserving valuable resources, renewing communities, and protecting the environment. Forward. A big part of any of this moving forward is really in terms of innovations and collaborations. We are working with companies around the world to continue to innovate. Our parent company is the Sept Group, and we are working with them on a footwear recycling pilot line. Footwear is very difficult to recycle. I think many of you know about Nike Grind and the great work there in terms of athletic shoes, but a big issue is just all the other types of shoes, whether it's hiking, whether it's women pumps, etc. So we've definitely taken the charge to recycle them as much as possible, and we start our pilot line this second quarter of this coming year. So we're excited about being able to tell you more about that in the future. Resin Tax is an EU-funded research project that's focusing on chemical recycling of textile waste. So there's about 20 different members within the Resin Tax, including us, that are looking at that very important subject of chemical recycling and these blends. And then there's another project also that a lot of brands are collaborating with, is called Trash for Cash, and its goal is really to regenerate fibers that result in fabrics of the same quality as new materials, and it's a model that's driven where paper and textile waste is recycled chemically. Then two other things I wanted to make sure that everyone's well aware of is the call to action for a circular fashion system. The Global Fashion Agenda was launched in May at the Copenhagen Fashion Summit. And the Global Fashion Agenda is a nonprofit that puts on the Copenhagen Fashion Summit, but they put a call out to the industry for a circular fashion system. And as of today, 64 fashion companies and corporations have signed this commitment to become circular, and they represent 143 brands with a combined value of 7.5 of the global fashion market. And there are goals being set in terms of collection rates, in terms of we wear product, and even into recycled fibers. And They also worked with the Boston Consulting Group on a very important study called The Pulse of the Fashion Industry that was launched at the Copenhagen Fashion Summit. And the report is on their website, and I recommend everyone read that. And it's really looking at the social and environmental status of the industry at this point. So they will also be doing a new call for new signatories to the commitment starting in November, and you can reach out to me or to them to learn more, but very important movement in the industry. And then on the right is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, launched also back in May their Circular Fibers Initiative, and that is to build a circular economy for textiles. And there's participants, including us, that will work together to define a vision for a global fiber system, which will address all the significant drawbacks of the take, make, and waste model that we have talked about. So another thing to keep an eye open for. And the next slide is how we look in terms of the collaboration and how imperative it is. So on the left side, you look at the degree of realization of a circular economy in the fashion industry. On the bottom, you look at the degree of collaboration that's needed to get there. So collection, as you can see, is definitely important and is on its way. Definitely need more to come on board. The next degree is looking at the material recognition and sorting in order to recognize the fibers that are in all of our goods so they can find their next best use and be able to be prepared for the circular economy. And then further up on collaboration is the development of the mechanical chemical recycling technologies that is critical. And then most importantly is then scaling in it and an industrial implementation to really make huge, massive change to the industry. But all of this cannot happen alone. So we will continue to work with our brands and partner with them and the industry and academia to move the industry forward. And then my last slide is just good things to know that just recently happened. The Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute has launched their Fashion Positive initiative several years ago, but this month they launched a brand new website, which is a great resource for designers to look at materials that have been Cradle to Cradle certified, which can help them, and also a resource information for anyone to learn more about the power of fashion without waste or compromise. So definitely look at their new website. And then our partner H&M has launched the Global Change Award again for this year, and it's an innovation challenge to find innovative recycling innovations and others, and this is through the H&M Conscious Foundation. So if you want to apply, definitely take a look at the website and learn more about the incredible work that's being done with the partners that have won in the past. And on top of this, definitely more and more brands and their sustainability reports are making very big strides in helping the industry close the loop. Just staying on the H&M side, H&M with their latest sustainability goals have 100% recycled and other sustainable sources materials by 2030. And with our collection program with them, at this point, we're close to 40,000 tons being collected since 2013, and a very big goal for them is by 2020, the goal to annually collect 25,000 tons. And more and more of our partners are creating these collection goals as part of the global fashion agenda and just on their own to really help move the industry forward. So thank you for your time, and again, thanks for having me here today. I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you so much, Jen. Very much appreciate it. And it's great to see that more brands are coming online and joining up and taking action on this topic. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to take about 3 minutes before I hand the controls over to Cynthia Power from EILEEN Fisher. I'm going to do a quick poll. So this is an audience participation portion, and so I am going to launch the poll. and answer the questions that you see in front of you. So this poll is going to help us understand everyone's perspective on textile waste, what your organization or company is doing around textile waste, and your interest level in being involved in our initiative to address textile waste in the United States. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second question. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to move on to question number 2. All right, get your answers in. I'm going to close question number 2 in just about 5 seconds, and I'm going to launch question number 3. Okay, so close question number 2. There's only 4 questions, so here's question number 3. All right. I'm going to close question number 3 in just about 5 seconds. If you haven't answered already, please go ahead and answer. All right, close question number 3 and ask question number 4. And again, this information is going to be very helpful to us as we move forward in addressing textile waste in the United States, and hoping to understand everyone's perspective around it and understanding who is able and available to be involved in helping to make it happen. All right, so I'm going to close question number 4, and that concludes the poll. And I can share all the results. But in the meantime, I would like to introduce Cynthia Power. So Cynthia is the facilitating manager of EILEEN Fisher Renew, the company's clothing take back and reuse program founded in 2009. Let me just get over to her. There we go. So every garment Renew takes back is sorted for its highest value and either resold, remanufactured, donated, or recycled, helping EILEEN Fisher get closer to becoming a truly circular company. In 2016, Cynthia helped launch the Tiny Factory in Irvington, New York. This visionary factory uses post-consumer clothing as its raw material to create new designs. Cynthia is passionate about pulling businesses from linear to circular models as part of a successful and healthy future of our industry and our planet. With that, I would like to turn it over to Cynthia. And Cynthia, I have given you mouse controls, so let me know if you are able to advance the slides and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I loved that presentation from ICO. I loved all the collaboration slides, and I'm with you, and I'll get there in my own presentation as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to dive into what EILEEN Fisher is up to. Let's see. Okay, so opening slide. This is from our handy-dandy resale website, EILEENFisherRenew.com. Feel free to check it out. It's new and exciting for us. So this idea where others see waste, we see possibility. We want all of our clothes back. We really believe that, you know, we make timeless, high-quality garments, and we think it's our responsibility, if we're making them, that we should be bringing them back. So we started, let's see, what's the second slide? Sorry. I'm trying to move forward. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm going to go back. Sorry. Trying to figure this out. Okay, so we started our Take Back program in 2009, and it started very organically just because of the quality of the garments we make. We had our employees kind of who thought, well, you know, we have all these extra clothes in our closets that we don't use, but they're still in perfect condition. So they were cleaning them and reselling them in one of our stores, and it just went really well. So we opened up the program to more stores, to all of our employees, and eventually to our customers. And since 2009, we've taken back over 800,000 pieces of EILEEN Fisher clothing, and we have resold. We've done about $10 million in resale revenue. And also, as part of the revenue, we take the net profits and donate them to causes we support, including women, girls, and the environment. So it's a really cool resale program. And as the program grew, and especially in the last couple of years, we really, you know, we were getting back a lot more clothes that had damages, not just perfect clothing. And so we've been stockpiling it, feeling like it's our responsibility. What are we going to do with it? And been trying that's kind of why we decided to we started as Green EILEEN, that was our name, and we've been kind of evolving this brand and growing it to expand into more than just resale but also into reuse. And so I'm going to be kind of talking about a bigger picture vision of this idea. In the company we're calling it circular by design. And so I wanted to just read this draft. May I highlight draft purpose statement for our circular by design and renew efforts. We do not see waste, only opportunity. To respect the resources we use in creating our product, we take full responsibility for our pre- and post-consumer waste. Our fabrics are the foundation of our business, and we believe they retain their beauty long after their first owner is done with them. We will take the steps necessary to keep our fabrics in a use cycle, and we give our customers and partners the opportunity and incentive to do the same. They are essential members of our ecosystem. We design our garments for ease of disassembly, remaking, and regenerating. We reduce, reuse, and recycle all pre-consumer waste. We build a future state where every single EILEEN Fisher garment is worn, reworn, renewed, and then remade into a new garment or textile. We then regenerate it into a new fabric or yarn, and eventually it makes its way back into the soil like organic cotton or is recycled as in poly or viscose. We commit to circular by design. So again, this is like this is what we call a moonshot. It's like, where do we want to get to if we were doing it all perfectly and we were 100% there? This is really the vision. And again, it is a work in progress, so I put that big draft on there. So like I was saying, since 2009, we've brought in over 800,000 garments. Last year, we took in 170,000, and I expect that we'll actually bring in more than that this year. We keep growing every year with what we get back. And as was already mentioned, sorting is a huge part of this process. So we make our first sort, and it's between what's still in pristine condition and resellable and what is damaged. And whether it's a tiny damage or it's full of moth holes, you know, we just want to resell what's in perfect condition. And about 55 to 60% of what we get back is in perfect condition. This is a beautiful photo of what we get back, and it's not piles of clothing in plastic and laundry bags. It's not necessarily a beautiful thing, but we're really committed to it, and our warehouse looks better than this now, but it's very overwhelming. And if you have spent any time in recycling centers or anywhere where they collect clothes, it's a lot of clothes, and we know that, and we still want it all. Like I said, last year, or we have this resale program. Last year we resold about 70,000 units, and for a revenue of approximately $2.8 million. And last year that was only in our stores. We have 2 freestanding stores, and we have 8 company store, like outlet stores, where we also sell it, as well as pop-ups. And then as of this year, we have our online store, which we are working to grow as well. Which this is our current homepage. again, check it out. We're really excited about it. We've partnered with Yurtle on this website, which they've also partnered with Patagonia on their worn-wear website. And very excited about the possibilities for online resale. So the next, if we can't resell a piece, then we're going to look at it. How can we keep it in use? So I put redesign here. That would also include like over-dyeing garments, mending garments, taking them apart, putting them back together. So these 3 pieces are actually made by one of our Renew team members. Her name is Lila Horwitz, and she takes multiple pieces of clothing and takes them apart and sews them back together. So these are very one-of-a-kind, like highly specialized pieces that we're really excited about and proud of. But then we're also doing a more scaled production of clothes of remade clothes in our what we're calling our tiny factory. It's in Irvington, New York, where the rest of our recycling center is as well. And it's tiny. It's 3 sewers and a manager. That's everybody right there, and that's actually where I am right now. If you're catching any background noise, I sit next to the boiler. But we have a whole production for our resewn garments where we're actually taking apart and deconstructing, hundreds, thousands of pieces of clothing. We have a remade designer who's then designing back into her, instead of it designing into rolls of fabric, she's designing into, 300 pairs of pants, and what can she make from that? So there's a whole new kind of production system, which I'm really excited about. I think it's really innovative, and I think we'll see more of it. As you were hearing about earlier, regenerating is really a hugely important part of the process, or you could call it recycling. But this idea that we're going to take fabric and turn it into fiber and turn it back into fabric. And, as you already heard, there's a lot of technology needed. We're starting to work with some mills and recyclers who are, doing kind of on the forefront, but the technology really isn't there yet, and we're really hoping that it's getting there. We're part of the fashion positive circular, I think it's called the Circular Innovation Group. We're really trying to figure out, how can we be most helpful in moving forward and finding and supporting those technologies, because that's what's going to make all of this, I think, really scalable for us. When I say, sorry, I'm going to step back for a second. When I say make it really scalable, the resale part of it is already it's already scaling and is very scalable. It's the reuse part of it that we can only use a certain percentage of the fabrics we get back for remanufacturing. Some of them, especially like some of our stretchier viscose materials, are harder to, they don't seem to hold their value as well in terms of remaking them as other fabrics like a woven linen or woven silk. I pulled this random slide out of a strategy presentation that we're putting together to kind of propose the future of our program, because I think it speaks really well to a couple of big points around inventory. One, this big circle and the little orange piece of pie, we got back, I said last year we got back 170,000 pieces of clothing, which is a lot, and we made, as a company, we made about 4 million garments last year. So we're getting back between 2 and 3% of what we're actually putting out into the world. So when we say we want it all back, we do, and to think about the program as it exists, 50 times bigger is really overwhelming. So that's one of our challenges of just thinking about scaling it to that size, even though we're committed to that. And then also just the breakdown of what we get back, which is kind of what I've been trying to speak to. So about 60% is first quality and perfect condition. We can clean it and resell it. Then there's this great category that our recycling center in Seattle has actually kind of invented, and they're called not so perfect or not quite perfect. And they're pieces of clothing that have a tiny damage, a small flaw, a small hole, a small stain that any of us would really wear, but we don't feel we can resell them as, true kind of pristine quality. And so they've been having special sales in Seattle, big warehouse sales, and they always have like a line of people around the block, and they come in and they buy their high quality Eileen Fisher clothes with their small flaws. And we talk about like you garden in your EILEEN Fisher, or, you know, do the dishes in your EILEEN Fisher. Like, you don't have to treat those clothes as preciously. They already have a small flaw. So that's a really fun, that's a fun category for us. And then the next would be current remade usage is like a very small percentage of the inventory that we get back. We think we can grow it to a much bigger chunk of what we get back. And then say there's about 15% or 15 to 20% of the total amount that that we get back that we don't have solutions for. And that's why I say that, you know, those technological improvements and breakthroughs are really necessary for us to deal with our entire inventory. Second to last slide is about telling the story. I think it's so important, and this was already touched on, like the customer and bringing the customer into the story and having her, she is a part of the process, having her feel really included, giving her or him agency, you know, to be part of it. I think it's really important. So both in the fact that they can bring their clothes back and you know, really handle them themselves and feel responsible for their own clothing, but then also talking to them about why this is important, why we think it's important, and really communicating about what we're doing. In case I made a giant oversight and never told you about how our program works initially, any customer can bring back any EILEEN Fisher piece to any of our stores in the US, or they can mail it to our recycling centers, and we give them back $5 in exchange for each piece, regardless of the condition that it's in. Hopefully I already told you that, but just in case. And my last slide, I made it myself. It is this idea that collaboration is key. So the first little lump is what we take, say what EILEEN Fisher takes back currently, that 2%. And then the middle little lump is say it's those 4 million EILEEN Fisher garments that we make every year. So we have to grow from that tiny little speck to this much bigger like mountain, if you will. And then the next one, as you I'm sure are guessing, is kind of how I think about the industry. And it's so big it doesn't fit in the screen. And you know, I think I really enjoyed seeing that stat earlier of, I think it was like 80 billion pieces of clothing are made each year. So we make 4 million. So even if we were to get completely closed loop at EILEEN Fisher, it's still not enough. So just this idea that we really want to partner, we really want to work with others. We want to, you know, I think this is really exciting, kind of like growing part of our industry, and I'm really just wanting to learn from others, have others learn from us, which I guess the last thing I'll say is we are hosting part of the After Textile Exchange in October. They have these tech excursions, and one of them is at our recycling facility in Irvington. So even if you're not going to Textile Exchange, you can still sign up for it on the Textile Exchange website. And outside of that, you know, if you're from another organization and you're in New York or you are visiting New York, you know, I love to show people around the space and just show them what we've done for ourselves. And it won't be the same for each organization, but just to get a sense of, you know, where we are and do any thinking with anyone else about what's possible for other brands or partnerships or anything. So I will stop there, and thanks very much.
Cynthia, thank you so much. I want to say that I think the EILEEN Fisher Renew model is just so inspirational, and if other brands can follow suit, then I think we'd all be in a much better place. And thank you so much for explaining what that last slide meant, because when you sent me the slide deck, I was so curious. And now it makes sense, beautiful artwork. And so I would like to open it up for questions. I realize we only have a few minutes left, so maybe Ashley, are we able to take 1 or 2 questions for the panelists?
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just skimming through the questions that we have here. This question will be directed towards you, Cynthia. And the comment is, it looks like there's 98% of EILEEN Fisher's goods that are not currently being returned. And can you give us an idea or maybe an example of how you could potentially collaborate with maybe curbside collection or some other players in the field to increase maybe just a little bit of a glimpse into what your long-term goals are for that?
Sure. So I will say in 2013 we did a big campaign. You could Google it. It was called "We'd Like Our Clothes Back, Thanks Very Much." And it was really fun, and we put it in all of our windows, and we were totally inundated with clothes, like mountains of clothes that we just finished climbing out from underneath. So I think, you know, the scale is a really important thing, and while we want it all back, we also have to like keep ramping up. So I think, you know, uh, I've been thinking about, you know, what would be better ways to, well, I think it's a great question. Um, I think one of the things we can easily do to get more clothes back is just ask, be louder about it, and ask our customers again, like, all right, bring them back. We just have to be in an operational place in order to be able to handle them. So right now, you know, they bring them back, the customers that know about it, and we actually have a tag in our clothing that says, please return your clothes when you're done with them. But I think, you know, between, like, we couldn't take back 100% of our clothes tomorrow. I mean, it would literally be like, I don't know, blocks and blocks covered in clothes. So we're kind of trying to grow with the returns. They continue to increase every year. We continue to kind of grow our facility, and we have to plan a strategy with that as well on the supply side. So we need to, like, do we need to open more Renew stores? Are we going to sell more in our retail stores? You know, how are we going to keep moving that product along? So I don't have a picture perfect strategy for it, but we know we need to keep scaling up so that we can keep receiving more clothes every year.
So on that same topic, Jen, I might kind of put that same question to you, because it sounds to me a little bit like, even though we do want to have more incentives for consumers to give their clothing back or to put it back into the stream, it sounds like it may be difficult for brands to deal with that level of volume. And I'm just curious how you kind of view that scale being an issue. If you think that, you know, there needs to be kind of growth over time in order to deal with the volume, or if you feel like there's capacity that could still be filled.
Yeah, you know, we, being a global company with a global infrastructure, and we continue to grow that, we are able to take on a volume. I mean, definitely more than what is happening now. It's, you know, very critical that more and more brands start doing take-back programs. It's, you know, it's also that infrastructure of the logistics of moving this so that it's not piling up within a store. So we work with partners on how to handle that. But we move this not only here in the United States but around the world. I think the big issue is being able to get more of the recycled fibers, not the demand for it, for even the 100% recycled cotton, the innovations for the blends. That is what needs to continue to grow in order to take the unwearable stuff and move it quicker and getting more into the supply chain. But we're able to take on a lot, and that's our goal, you know, just to eliminate textile waste. So it's a little bit different than EILEEN Fisher, because you know, that picture of your stock room, it's, yeah, I can imagine that just be blowing up. But you know, we should talk to see how we can help on that front as well.
So, and one of the issues, and I realize we're right at time, and this is actually a really specific question, but I think it gets at kind of the heart of where the challenges are and what you're discussing, Jen. The question is, can cotton or denim be blended with 2 to 5% elastane? So cotton that's being blended with elastane, can that be recycled back into yarn right now, or does that have to be 100%? And Jennifer, maybe you can just use that as kind of an example of what some of the challenges are specifically on the technical side.
Yeah, I mean, right now, 100%, even though I think we all know, even a label may say 100% cotton, it not always is. You've got to think about the thread that's being used. It's probably a poly thread. You know, there's other items within there that need to be cut out to either get to the 100% that's there. So yeah, I mean, 5% elastane could start causing problems. 98 to 100% is, is good, but anything beyond that is difficult. And if the key thing too, when you start getting into these high percentages, when you try and do mechanical recycling, it starts melting and mucking the machines because the poly just it melts. So that's like very simple way why mechanical recycling is difficult and why chemical is really the big move, everlasting, poly, and the like.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there are a lot more questions, but I think we'll have to follow up with those individually following the webinar since we're right at time. But I definitely want to just take a moment and thank RRS for all the work that you've done to put into this webinar series. Marisa, you've done a fantastic job just bringing in really dynamic speakers on really interesting topics. And I think it's going to be a really big asset to the industry for a long time since we have those webinar archives available. And for Cynthia and Jennifer, thank you both so much for your time today, and respectively also to EILEEN Fisher and ICO for providing the time and the topics today. And thanks so much to all of our attendees. We will talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, Ashley.